All right, looks good. All right, well, welcome to Crossplane Community Meeting. It is December 7th, 2020, and we are about a week out from, or exactly a week out from the V 1.0 release, which is obviously a really big milestone for Crossplane. So we're going to be looking at a few things to just kind of round out that release today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And share the agenda doc here. Please feel free to add your name to the agenda doc if you haven't already. I think I got a number of folks already before we got started. And also reminding you that this meeting is governed by the CNCF community standards. So please do be excellent to each other and respectful of one another. All right. So we'll start off here, as we always do, with the milestone checkup. So before we start recording, I'll go ahead and mention again, since we didn't get on the recording. Phil mentioned this blog post, which is really awesome, that he put together and we posted about last week. A pretty extensive blog post that details a lot of the stuff that has happened with Crossplane over the year as we just turned 2 years old. Phil, since you were chatting before we started the recording, did you want to mention anything for posterity here?
Oh, yeah, just really great to see kind of the community coming together. Tons of progress on the providers and the code gen, and even with kind of like CDK on top. So really great effort, and that's all built around kind of the V1.0 core that's about to be released next Monday, like Dan was mentioning. So yeah, it's just a super exciting time to be part of the project, and a lot of good momentum and stuff. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it was definitely fun for me to scroll through this and remember all the awesome things that happened and yeah, take a look at some of the stuff. So definitely give that a read. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at our roadmap here. And I can't remember, this is up to date, right, Phil? I think you merged an update recently for this.
Yeah, there are a couple things that are probably going to get pushed out till after 1.0, like bidirectional patching. I think we did get claim update propagation, or that's on its way. Revision support, I think we're trying to get that, but I don't know if you have an update on that from Nick. And then 1609, I think we're probably going to punt if that's not an easy add. Going into to 1.0, and that shouldn't really impact the APIs. Validation webhooks is also likely to slip out of 1.0. Nick's actually just got a new house, so he's been like kind of moving, and then there's been some other things, so it's kind of been some of these like lower priority things might be being bumped out, but we'll see how that progresses over the next week.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. One thing that's not here that I think, and I would defer to Nick to say this for sure. I think we will support requesting additional RBAC as in your Crossplane packages, which is especially useful for some of the new providers. They're trying to do some in-cluster stuff because by default, you only get RBAC for things that you install. So, right, if you create provider AWS, you install your AWS CRDs, and your controller in that package is automatically given RBAC for that. However, if you want to, create deployments or manage some CRDs from another package or something like that, then you're going to need RBAC on those as well. So I believe Nick has that in flight now. He was chatting about that at the end of last week. So keep your eyes open for a PR on that. And I guess along what we were just looking at there on the roadmap, we can take a quick look at the project board. For folks who aren't familiar, the project board here is where we track the actual issues and PRs for what's going into a given release. Note that this is at the project level, not at the Crossplane repo. So if you go to the Crossplane org and then projects, you'll find this. And we're making pretty good progress here. I think some of this can probably be updated, and some of these are more kind of like meta tracking issues as well. I don't think, unless if someone wants to talk about anything specifically here, I don't think that there's too much to talk about that's not going to be mentioned later in open PRs. All right. Also, when we looked at the roadmap a bit ago, we saw some of the focus areas. So I'll just kind of like briefly go over what we're doing in each of these, and also defer to folks who are working on them more specifically to provide more information. When we say hardening and stabilization, a lot of that is around the composition and package manager kind of model. You'll notice that last week in master we removed V1 Alpha 1 APIs for those that we were serving, both V1 Beta 1 and V1 Alpha 1. So V1 Alpha 1s will be not present in the 1.0 release, but we should have V1 APIs of those. So the goal there is that folks go ahead and move to the V1 APIs, and we will maintain stabilization and backwards compatibility on those. We've also started to increase our testing story, which I may chat about a little bit later. But overall, just getting some production readiness on different cross-plane components. Next is composition. I think Phil already mentioned most of the main points on that. I know later on I added Simon's PR here, which is about requiring different or the spec field in XRDs. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. I guess Nick or Phil would probably be the most appropriate to check in and see if there's any additional things you think we should mention about composition here.
Yeah, I think we're probably, pretty good for 1.0 on the composition side.
By the way, the claim propagation is in.
Oh, cool.
It's going to be in the 1.0.
Perfect.
I mean, I guess I will kind of mention just one experimental thing relating to composition. So this is really going to be more of like a beyond 1.0 thing, but we're exploring custom compositions for use with like Cdk the sidecar. And so we're basically focused on getting kind of like the core composition, to like a V1 level for 1.0. But then after that, we're looking to kind of expand out. And so we're going to be giving a sneak peek of some of that perhaps at the community day coming up, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for calling that out. That's a good point. Along with some of the custom composition stuff, we've also kind of looked at a function package model. So right now we have configuration and provider packages, and we're kind of thinking about a new package type that would potentially basically expose an endpoint and be called by various basically scaffold operators in core Crossplane. So custom composition is a great example of that, right? So you have some logic that you bundled up into a container, you install that into Crossplane, and it's given the appropriate permissions. And then Crossplane calls out to that to perform compositions potentially. You can also see other applicability for things like day two operations if you wanted to, provide your custom logic in whatever language you want for a database migration or something like that. So if you have thoughts on that, there's a lot of conversations going on around that right now. I know some of the Red Hat folks have been engaged in those conversations, and I've provided some good feedback. I did want to quickly, since we brought that up, go ahead and link the PR here. So this is MoveOffice custom compositions design doc. If you scroll down here, we have a thread going right here that describes some of these different approaches. So if you have thoughts, I'll go ahead and just link to that specifically. Please feel free to drop those in there. We'll make sure those are considered in the design. Moving on to the package manager, the main feature for the package manager for 1.0 was adding dependency resolution. So that has been introduced and tested pretty thoroughly. So now when you declare depends on in your Crossplane packages, you can go ahead and have those automatically installed for you. And I believe I gave a demo of that last week, or 2 weeks ago. So go ahead and check out the YouTube channel if you'd like to see that. Outside of that, there's been a small set of kind of like follow-on fixes for stuff in the package manager and dependency resolution. One that's currently open right now has to do with the default registry name, which I'll talk about later on. But pretty much we're mostly good to go on that front. Please do let me know if you'd like to test out specific features of that for your use case, so that we can make sure that we have good coverage of everything folks want to do. Provider acceleration. I'll go ahead and let Casey chat about that maybe for a little bit, and then move off it as well.
Yeah, I'll start with ASO. That's basically on hold while Matt is out for the month of December, but he pre-recorded a talk to play back in Community Day, so we'll have that, and also be talking about what we're doing on Terraform. On the Terraform side, I have resources generated. I have a small exclusion list for resources that have duplicate nested object names, because right now we need to do something a little bit more complex to detect which of those are actually structurally identical, and which ones are actually different, and rename the ones that are different. But there's 491 that we're generating schemas for. And then also we have encoders for all those that go from the CRD type to the Terraform type. And so for the Terraform provider runtime, which I wrote earlier for the GCP prototype, we kind of need 3 pieces to have a fully working provider. And those are, encoding Terraform structures from Crossplane CRDs and decoding from Terraform back to Crossplane, and then comparison functions that we use to implement updates. And so we have the encode, and then we need the decode and the comparison to kind of bring all these, 400 some odd resources into a reconciler. I'm pausing a little bit on that to focus more end to end to build out the other parts of the provider, like how we do the external connector and so forth, just to get feedback on the whole experience of using one of these generated providers. And so what that means is that I'm going to pick out a couple resources to handwrite the decode and comparison methods. I'm looking at probably IAM, because that's something that we know ACK doesn't want to implement, and it's also fairly simple. So take a couple of resources, build out all those other parts that we need for a complete reconciler, and then put that out there for people to start taking a look at. And then we'll get back to decoding and comparison code generation to kind of finish off the alpha of this project. And yeah, I'll hand it over to move off to talk about ACK.
Yeah, sure. So ACK just got a big overhaul in terms of refactoring. We changed a few things about Crossplane pipeline, and I've been trying to get it work again, and that's done. So we're back on track. As of now, I think we only have the SageMaker API not generated for Crossplane, and I'm planning to get it done in the next days. And then go back to making update work in a way that will, reconcile the resources. As you know, most of the ACK resources right now do not support updating. It's create and delete because of a few unsupported functions that we have, is up to date. And also, many of ACK resources, they just don't have update at all supported in ACK2. So yeah. I think at the end of the week, we should have, right now we have 54 or something in terms of number of resources. I think we should hit 70, I believe, with the rest of the CRDs in ACK.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome. Well, cool. Yeah, thanks for that update. I don't know if we have any OAM specific stuff today. I don't think we have any of the OAM maintainers on the call. But with the release schedule, we already mentioned we're releasing a week from today. And with some of this code generation stuff, I think that's probably a good segue into talking about the Crossplane Community Day event. And I'll let Phil kind of cover all of that.
Cool. Yeah, if you just want to pop open that community day. link. Yeah, so we basically had our community day, the first one back in May of this year. And so this one's focused on kind of modernizing with an API-centric control plane. So as you all know, Crossplane's built on top of the Kubernetes API machinery, which is an API-centric control plane designed for extensibility. We got a ton of really awesome speakers, many of who are on the call here. So really looking forward to kind of a great session, kind of hearing, from Kelsey and Joe Beta and Brendan Burns and many others on kind of like the future state of where we're heading, kind of, I guess, as an industry, and then all the cool stuff that we've been up to. So yeah, really looking forward to it. And that's kind of a free virtual event on the 15th, right the day after we release 1.0. So yeah, definitely looking forward to celebrating with everybody in the community, and really thankful for all the contributions and stuff that people have been making.
For sure. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, a lot of really awesome folks speaking at that event. So definitely please sign up for that and come hang out with us as we kind of celebrate the 1.0 release. All right. I guess that was kind of a community topic. And I know we have the Beyond 1.0 here. I guess we can pop open the roadmap again here and see if there's anything folks want to talk about. So I know Phil already mentioned that like conversion webhooks and some of these other composition stuff is going to be post 1.0. So I don't think there is too much to discuss for stuff coming after that, but definitely as folks are looking at the features that are coming out in 1.0, think about things that you'd like to be followed up with in the subsequent release. Obviously we'll be going into the holidays after the 1.0 release, so things will probably slow down a little bit, but we'll stay on our regular cadence of getting a new release out there. And so if there are things that you are interested in, please raise issues for those, or let us know you want to work on them. All right. Let's see, what issue is this? Did we already chat about it? Oh yeah, I think this is the Cdk stuff. Phil, was there anything else you want to mention? I know you already went pretty in depth on this. Or you just talked about custom composition. So anything you want to add here?
Yeah, just really excited about the collaboration, kind of with Alad and Illy on the AWS CDK team, and Movafik to kind of bring together like multi-language support into Crossplane on top of the Kubernetes API. So kind of looking at this from two perspectives. One, in terms of static generation that CDK supports today, but then we made significant improvements on kind of the ability to import all of the Crossplane resources into CDK with the enhancement that Dan made to the doc.crds.dev site that basically scans all of your scans GitHub repos for CRDs, and then basically provides documentation, and now actually has like a raw endpoint that allows you to get the manifest of all the CRDs for a given version. And so that basically, plus this really awesome UX overhaul that was done recently by Coder Richie, or Richie Coder One. And so, this basically then gets fed into a CDK's import command, where you can just specify, GitHub : and then your repo and version. Then it'll go ahead and import that. And so there's a couple, PRs that we did to kind of make that, play nice and be nice and clean and everything. And so got that up and running against platform ref AWS on Friday, and basically validated that working end to end, and did a little code gen on the side too for importing and converting the existing YAMLs into TypeScript resources. And so the work ahead is basically kind of get that cleaned up. It's kind of like an L1 import. They have the concept of like L1, L2, L3 abstractions, where L1 is effectively just the basic marshalling structures that are equivalent to the YAML. L2 basically providing, like TypeScript and language helpers that kind of make it cleaner to create a given resource. And then L3, which is basically kind of, like a composed abstraction on top of, the existing resources. And so I'll be spending time over the next couple of days to kind of get the L2 and perhaps an L3 resource for Crossplane core as part of a new Crossplane CRD project that we're just kind of bootstrapping. And then if there's time, Alad's been working on Cdk Sidecar. So he just got done publishing a repo for that called Cdk Operator out of his own GitHub account. And Muvafik's been working on kind of a custom composition prototype. And so the idea there is that in addition to the static generation, that you'd be able to, when you say, hey, I want to add a composition to my package in Crossplane in like TypeScript, just add a flag to say, and run this behind the API line, run this in Kubernetes. And that would allow dynamic evaluation of that CDK program to do things like, grab CIDR ranges from external sources using whatever libraries you want, as well as like having kind of conditional output, looping for if you want multiple subnets, things like that. So yeah, really looking forward to this, and it's nice to see it being able to be built on top of the Kubernetes API as opposed to an alternate to the Kubernetes API. So a really nice kind of ecosystem fit with CDK and kind of the first-class multi-language support that we have planned for Crossplane.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that update. Let's see. Do we have anything else? Let's scroll down a little bit more. I think that was all for the Beyond 1.0. It doesn't look like we have any community topics. I know we already talked about the community day coming up. I did add these 2 PRs here, and there's a number of other ones open as well that I think just need some review from folks. But it looks like Simon, who I don't think was able to join the call today, wanted to be able to specify a required spec and was unable to in an XRD. So that's something to look forward or to look into. And it looks like he's already taken the initiative to open a PR there. So I can take a look at that after. Maybe Nick would also want to look at that one. Oh, it looks like you already have. Awesome. 8 minutes ago. Nick is addressed him before we get to him in the agenda. All right. And then this one was one from me at the end of last week. So basically this is around the default registry naming. So the underlying package that we use to pull Crossplane packages in core Crossplane, it's called Go Container Registry. In Go Container Registry, it automatically defaults to index.docker.io for pulling images. We initially implemented, and this was kind of motivated, or I guess I initially implemented since it was incorrect. It was initially motivated by probably defaulting to the Upbound registry where most packages live. The source was getting pinned with index.docker.io, and that was causing, if you declared your dependency in your Crossplane package as, Crossplane / provider AWS, if it was then getting added as index.docker.io / Crossplane / provider AWS, then we weren't saying that, the equivalent package was present. But the installation and resolving obviously didn't work either because it was trying to add the same package again. So anyway, what we do now in this PR, it's not a huge change, but upstream, we've added the ability to be able to supply whatever default you want. And so you can see I've just removed the index.docker.io. So when we're actually using the dependencies and adding them to the lock, we just default to nothing. So if you don't provide a registry, we don't add it to the lock with one, which just makes it a little more one-to-one with how you supply your dependencies. And then we will still default to pulling from Docker when we actually, download the package into the package cache. But this avoids the issues that were shown in the building of the configurations we use in our docs here, where they weren't resolving correctly because they were specified as Crossplane / provider Alibaba, and it was becoming index.docker.io. So anyway, kind of a small change, but definitely really important to get in to make sure that this is functioning properly. So I just wanted to surface that so we can get some reviews on that. Did anyone else have any PRs they wanted to discuss? All right. I know there's a few other ones here from Cosro, and I comment on one of them. One of them exposing metrics, which we definitely want to go. I think that one's pretty much ready to go. And then he also opened one for memory profiling in debug mode, which I think sounds like a cool feature. And it looked pretty good to me, but didn't give it too much of a pass. So if anyone else wants to look at that, or I'll also follow up after this call and take a peek at it as well. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much all we have for today. I will give anyone a chance here to bring anything up for our optional discussion time, but if we don't have anything, we can go ahead and finish up.
Hey, Dan, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the impact on the providers for this release version 1.0 release candidate, so are we supposed to update the provider, for example, the IBM Cloud provider, to use now the libraries and CRDs for version 1.0?
So from the provider perspective, I just, I'm familiar with what you've done in the IBM Cloud provider so far. You should be good to go. We probably will bump your Crossplane runtime dependency, but I can't think of anything that would break the work that you've done. So yeah, you can release that, or we can release that on any cadence, especially going forward with 1.0. All versions should be backwards compatible. So there shouldn't be too much to worry about, but we'll definitely make sure to circulate anything and or help update any providers if something is needed.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, and another thing to note, your integration tests are running against the latest master Crossplane. So as long as they're passing that, we at least know it can install correctly and that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. There was just, as you know, that little change, but other than that, it was fine.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, if no one else has anything, I think we can go ahead and call it a day. Thanks to everyone for joining. If you hadn't yet added your name to the roster here, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, we can go ahead and call it a day. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Dan. Have a good one.
Thank you.